views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey there, welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to writers and journalists and editors and all the people putting stuff out in the media. And that would also include photographers and filmmakers and artists and anybody putting stuff out in the Bronx. And this evening, in our second segment, you're going to love the photographer. I had never met him before. I'd never seen his work before. He's being shown actually at Montefiore Medical Center at their gallery. And that'll be for the next couple of months. So you'll get a chance to see his work. But to start the program this evening, we're going to welcome Liz Donovan. She is the climate reporter for City Limits, also a member of Report for America Corps. Nice to have you with us, Ms. Donovan.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
As I mentioned to you before the program, we had advocates, environmental advocates on our other program, Bronx Talk, this week to talk about what they thought about Governor Hochul's awarding contracts for a major green energy initiative to power New York City with wind, solar, and hydropower. It would originate from upstate New York and Canada and be transmitted all the way down. Why don't you talk a little bit, if you would, about the proposal, about the article that you wrote, and then we'll break it down as what the implications are for the borough of the Bronx.
Sure. Well, as you know, in 2019, New York State passed the Climate Leadership and Community Investment Act, which set a bunch of really aggressive targets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and transition to clean energy. So it was looking at 85% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050 and 100% zero emission electricity throughout the state by 2040. So back in January, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, NYSERDA, put out a request for proposals for companies that were going to be able to bring these clean energy projects into the state. And there were 7 proposals that were submitted. So what Governor Hochul said in her press conference was that they basically had narrowed it down to 2. And she decided the first day of Climate Week, New York City, to just go ahead with both projects that they had kind of selected as finalists. So those 2 projects, I can talk in detail about both of them.
Let me, I can list some of the things. They said it would create approximately 10,000 jobs, bring $8.2 billion in investments, including $460 million for community benefit agreements, which resonates beautifully in the borough of the Bronx. I personally didn't like the idea. They said it would be to support disadvantaged communities. It's kind of a pejorative way of talking about Bronx neighborhoods. We don't view ourselves, I think, as disadvantaged. We may be overburdened, but that's another thing. And of course, reduce the city's reliance. I guess here's the thing, reliance on fossil fuels. Here's the thing that Bronx environmental advocates were very concerned about, and that was the process, is that original documents said that the thing was going to be one of the converter stations might be in Van Cortlandt Park, which for Bronx people is a non-starter. Bronx people are always worried that we end up getting the short end of the stick. Do you want to talk directly about, is the Bronx in danger, or what do we already know about this particular project or projects that would be of interest to the people of the Bronx?
Yeah, well, the one project that I think you're talking about is the Clean Path New York project, which for the summer, I was writing about this. I was speaking with actually Melissa Barber of South Bronx Unite, and we were just having a conversation about, different issues that Bronx residents have that I wanted to look into, and particularly interested in when projects that are meant to be renewable energy or, kind of climate, thinking forward as far as climate progress, end up hurting communities that have consistently been overburdened with highways and waste transfer plants and power plants, which, as you know, the Bronx has been. So they were at that time, the Clean Path New York project proposal showed that there was going to be a high voltage converter station that would basically, all that energy that was being brought in from upstate was going to be, or from Delaware County rather, was going to be transferred in the Bronx, and it was set to be in the Terminal Mall, right in that area, right across from the.
Originally, that's true. That was the original plan, to put it down by 161st Street. That's right.
Exactly. So Representative Richie Torres came out and he did a little presser in front of the Children's Museum and said that he had negotiated with the company and gotten them to agree to put it in a non-residential area. So at that time, I spoke with the New York Power Authority, which is one of the companies that is part of Clean Path New York. And they told me their plan was to not put it in the Bronx at all. And their new proposal that they put forth, the section, if you compare the two proposals, the section that shows where the converter station is, describing the Terminal Mall area in the first proposal, in the revised proposal, it's redacted.
Well, that alarm bells for Bronx environmental advocates.
Of course, and that was frustrating to me as a reporter too, because I thought there should be transparency with this, especially when the project had already been contentious, right? You want to get the local residents on board with a project like this that's supposed to, bring clean energy into the state. You want to be very transparent. So I reached out to NYSERDA and they told me that the location for the new converter station is going to be in Astoria, in an industrial area. I looked at the address. I also spoke with the person who he did the report. He was with the Bronx. I got it wrong in my story, and now I want to make sure I don't get it wrong. I think it was the Bronx for Urban Studies. He did a report
That's Caesar Yoke. He was one of the guests on our program this week.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm interested to hear what he said, because if he had a chance to look at it a little bit closer, because I reached out to him to find out. Okay, well, this is the new idea. What do you think about this? So what his report had identified was a UK study showing clusters of leukemia among children who lived within a certain distance of.
There was a quarter mile from a station like that.
It's exactly right. It was a quarter mile. So I looked at the map and it looks like where this converter station is now in Astoria. Because of course, then I was concerned with Astoria. That's another overburdened community.
I realize that, it's not the Bronx, so it's not our direct concern, but I can understand that a reporter for City Limits would want to know a lot more. And yes, we certainly wouldn't want to burden the people of Queens either.
Right. It's the other asthma alley, right? So there was a concern there, but I did look at it on a map, and it does seem like there's nothing within 1/4 of a mile from.
Well, that's good. But here's the thing: it's the redacting. What came up from all the advocates that we had. We had the Bronx Council of Environmental Quality. We had Assembly Member Amanda Septimo, who represents a large part of the southern part of the Bronx. Their issue was, why not come to the communities beforehand? Why not really find out? Because people in the communities may know where there could be better places. And I understand that New York City has a problem because they don't have, empty property away from residential areas, other than Parkland, which of course is a non-starter. So their thing was what you've already mentioned, is transparency.
Right.
And why not work with communities rather than say, here's the plan, now what do you do?
Exactly. And to that end, NYSERDA did tell me that once the projects get underway, of course, they have to first go through permitting and regulation process with.
Sure. And environmental, we would like to think they're going to do an EIS.
Yeah, the Department of Environmental Conservation will be looking at the projects. There'll be 60 days of public comment, and NYSERDA said they will be encouraging both companies throughout the process to be engaging with the local community. So whether they do that or not, is on them. But that's what the state agencies are telling me.
I took because the people in the Bronx, we had the Croton water filtration plant put in Van Cortlandt Park, and 45 acres of Van Cortlandt Park. The EIS, which was examined very carefully here in the Bronx, was baloney. I don't know what else to tell you. They talked about under $1 billion for the project. We ended up paying $4 billion. It's 15 years later. It's still not completed. So I guess we'd have to forgive Bronx advocates for saying, come to us first. Let's have a dialogue, because 60 days, how much comment can you get? And then is there really a back and forth, a give and take? It's not like people sitting around a table. So anyway, I'm sorry, because I've been hearing this for years. I don't want to throw cold water on what should be a very good project, but that's the concern that's here in the Bronx.
Well, I think it really needs to be looked at from all angles, right? Because we want green energy, of course, to come into the state, but we don't want to continue to overburden environmental justice communities. I mean, that's consistently a topic that comes up in public comment, is a specific questions about environmental justice. And that's something that, we really do need to be thinking about. And I hope that the people who are involved in this project are thinking about that.
I will also tell you, we have also invited New York Power Authority and Clean Path to come on another edition of Bronx Talk and even respond to some of these things. Let me just ask you, for you, being a climate reporter, you love writing about the environment. I mean, tell me a little bit about you, and let the people know when they read your byline on City Limits, who are they getting it from? But give us a little bit.
Yeah, I used to write about immigration. I just completed the story for the New York Times on immigration, on home health aides, and that was kind of my passion. And then I was working in France at Agence France Presse. I was on the climate desk there, and I was kind of taking major global information about climate change, the IPCC reports, things like that, and writing about it for a global audience. Now I'm able to take a lot of the social justice work that I have been doing with immigration writing and the kind of global issues of climate change and distill it for a local audience in New York, which has been really exciting for me.
What drives you? What's the motivation to do work about the environment or about immigration or things like that?
It's holding people accountable. It's holding people accountable from and making sure that people who have already consistently been overburdened in society are not continuing to be so.
Listen, you've come to the right place if you're talking to the borough of the Bronx.
Right.
One of the things, just going back to that project, one of the things in their information, I think, that the governor put out, they talked about $2.9 billion in public health benefits to basically deal with people who have been affected by these things. I'd like to get to a situation where we do it from a preventative point of view rather than say, well, you got asthma, now we'll put funding into treating asthma. I mean, that's not, it's not where it's at. Do you think that part of this dialogue is, if you talk to people in the South Bronx, they'll say the first thing we should do is get rid of these peaker plants that are fossil fuel generating plants that are, of course, affecting the lungs of all of our children. Do you think that could be part of the dialogue, or at this point they're just going to talk about, for 60 days, they're going to talk about the 2 lines that are coming down from Canada?
Yeah, I mean, the peaker plant discussion has been going on for a while. I know Comptroller Scott Stringer has been talking about that, and New York Power Authority has, I forget the number, I want to say 5, but that might be wrong, maybe 7 peaker plants in the city that it runs. So yeah, hopefully as we switch to green energy, we won't need these extremely dirty sources of energy to handle the overload. Peaker plants really only run when, air conditioning is on a lot, kind of during the summer.
Right. Maybe the message then is help is on the way. I wish that is the message. But anyway, Liz Donovan, we're going to keep reading you in City Limits. You are a wealth of knowledge for us here in the Bronx because, as you know, we're all concerned about the environment and our health. And we certainly appreciate you joining us in the Bronx Buzz. And we look forward to having you come back because guaranteed there's going to be a follow-up on this and more environmental projects in the future.
Of course. And your viewers can feel free to contact me if you have any tips or any questions or anything like that about the climate and environment. Thank you.
Great. We have your contact info, of course, will be up on the screen. And so thank you so much, Liz Donovan from City Limits. We'll take a break. And then when we come back, as I told you, we are going to be seeing some great photography, Bronx photography. You're going to love it. Don't go away.